Hello! It's time for another episode of Stupidity in the Gamosphere. This episode will be focusing on some disturbing news, which will be the last section of this video, and also general goings on in the gaming community. So, without further ado, let's get down to it after the cut. So, let's get down to it. The first bit of news comes from us, comes to us from playeressence.com, and this news is more than a little bit troubling. As we all know, Silent Hills has been canceled, but there is also quite a bit of other stuff going on behind the scenes. When you put it all together, it looks really, really bad. I mean, really, really bad. It's kind of creepy, in a creepy kind of way. So, without further ado, we'll get into what's been going on at Konami, or at least what has been intimated to be going on, because there's non-disclosure agreements, there's people dropping hints at what's going on, so we can only go by evidence. Over the years, over the last, I want to say, since 2007, 2008, Konami has gradually started to pull back. At least their gaming division, their games, their software gaming division, has pulled back from putting out a lot of IPs. They bought up Hudson. They haven't really released any Hudson games except for that one terrible Bomberman Zero game, which was god-awful. You know, we got two craptastic Castlevania games. We got three craptastic Castlevania games on home consoles. We got the Castlevania Judgment game on the Wii. That was basically a fighting game, not the game people wanted. And Castlevania, and the two Castlevania, well, we got two Castlevania games that came to the PS3 and the Xbox 360 and PC, I believe. There also was a handheld game that was made by the same studio, Mirror of Fate, but I'm gonna discount that because, I mean, you know, console games are like you're the diamond in the crown of a console manufacturer's games, or sorry, they're the crowning jewel in a third-party IP. Like, what you put on the home console is normally your most impressive, the jewel in the crown of what you're making. So even though I love Bravely Default, and people were hailing Bravely Default as being a return of Square Enix being able to make RPGs, I don't consider it that, because it's on a handheld. You have limitations. You have certain design choices you're just going to have to make because it's on a handheld. Now, when they make a good RPG on a console, like they used to for 3 console gens, then I might say, well, you know, these guys got it. Until then, they ain't got it. So we saw 2 craptastic Castlevania games, a slew of Metal Gear Solid games, and one incredibly bad Bomberman game that was put on the Vita, if I remember correctly. So basically, we've seen, you know, since 2007, so let's say 8 years ago, Konami gradually pulling back from putting out quality titles. We haven't seen Gradius, Mystical Ninja. You know, if they even put out a game, it only landed in Japan or China or Korea. Never came to the States. I remember there was a PS2 Ganbare Goemon game, and it never came. And that is just really sad. Because, you know, I mean, I'm an old school Konami fan. Some of my favorite games came from Konami, and I love them. Love them dearly. So saying that, we're seeing a lot of bad stuff happening at Konami, and that is, that's pretty bad. I mean, it's pretty frightening that, you know, we're seeing Hideo Kojima is being basically, they're putting him and his team in the corner. Get them to finish this game, and they're probably going to cut them off after Metal Gear Solid 5 drops. Which is sad, because even though I don't really give a shit about Metal Gear Solid, it is like an establishment almost in the gaming industry. You know, almost these cinematic type game that, you know, has a one-eyed protagonist who goes around shooting people and hiding bodies in lockers, you know, whatever. But I mean, it's sad that we're not gonna, that, you know, the person who really ushered and personified this series is not gonna be working on it, which is a damn shame, really. But Konami's been hurting financially for quite some time, and they're trying to make moves. The CEO of Konami, the CEO and founder of Konami, is trying to make moves to put them in the gambling industry, which, I mean, would help Konami, but goddamn, that doesn't sound awesome to me at all. But that's just me. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of bad news coming out, and even if and some of it is unsubstantiated, we don't have we have no direct evidence to correlate these claims, but we do have circumstantial and anecdotal evidence. And anecdotal evidence, I'm just gonna throw out the window because you can't really go with anecdotal. But we do have, I mean, some of these things, even if 10% of some of this stuff is jibing with what's actually going on in Konami, is some bad news. And with that being said, it's time to move on to bad news, but not quite as bad as this. Okay, speaking of speaking of bad news, the first bit of disturbing news we got out the way first, but this one isn't so disturbing. It's actually, I mean, if you know anything about Konami and how they've been very reticent to fund a lot of things, like a lot of games were canceled. A lot of Igarashi prototype, like he'd do like prototypes for games, for Castlevania handheld games, and they get canceled like before they could even flower. So it's not really shocking to see that another game in its infancy, well, hell, not even in its infancy, the two cells just met in the womb and cell division was occurring, and someone took a pill and it's dead now. What do I mean? Silent Hill. Silent Hill. They're taking down the demos of PT, so if you haven't gotten it already, you're screwed if you haven't. It's sad. It's sad. So initially, when people have reached out to Norman Reedus' agent, they've been mum on it. You know, you need to talk to Konami. They talked to Guillermo del Toro. He was like, at first, his publicist was like, well, it's in flux, you know, kind of giving people false hope, and now it's been officially canceled. So, yeah. Combine that with Kojima basically being relegated to, man, as soon as this game is finished, your ass is out the door. Some bad shit going on. Some very, very bad shit going on. It's sad because a lot of people like Silent Hill. Me, having played most of them, you know, Silent Hill for me was always like, I was more terrified of the ideas in Silent Hill than the actual game of Silent Hill. But that's just me. You know, some people found it to be terrifying. I think it was in Silent Hill 2 where you could like be hiding in a closet and Pyramid Head would like grab one of the other monsters and go away and rape them. That was pretty terrifying to me. I was like, oh shit, this game has its own sick-ass ecosystem. But it's sad that this game has been canceled because, I mean, in a universe of games where they're just shooter after shooter after shooter, it's good to have some horror, something new. And Guillermo del Toro, whether you like him or not, really good at doing horrific things. If you don't believe me, watch Pan's Labyrinth. That movie is horrifying. and not because it's just kind of creepy looking. I mean, it's literally horrifying. And now that it doesn't exist, it's a sad thing. But on to other stupidity after the cut. Okay then, it's time to get down to it. This second thing isn't so bad, it's just kind of funny. It's called Skyrim's paid mods. Steam and Valve and Bethesda going for the cash grab. And, you know, basically you've got Gabe Newell, well, it's fair to the people creating the mods, which is horseshit. And I'll tell you why. It's stupid for some. I'm not saying it's stupid for someone to believe this. I'm saying it's stupid for someone to say this, and I'll tell you why. The split is $25.75. So for every dollar spent on the mod, only a quarter of it is going to the developer of said mod. Plus, the mods are unregulated. People can use bits and pieces of other people's mods to make their own mods. And secondly, like 75% of the mods of the money is going to Valve and Bethesda. Now, my problem with this is that, you know, Bethesda I can kind of understand because they have created a platform for people to showcase their mods. But with Bethesda, there are literally mods that exist solely for the purpose of making this game playable. Unofficial mods to make it more playable and more stable because Bethesda can't be bothered to make a complete game. They're charging people for mods to make their shitty, shoddily programmed game playable. That seems a little, that's like someone charging you for, it's like someone charging, it's like Toyota saying, hey, someone fixed the car that has a design flaw, but you have to give us money because they fixed it. That's ass backwards right there, or should I say bass backwards? But anyway, yeah, this is the paid mods thing. Like the way the way I feel about that, like this: if the content is is above and beyond the average mod, like if it's not like a sword or a new playable race or like a palette swap of some other crap that's already in the game or a retexture or something like that, then I'm gonna say, well, I mean, you can't charge like $15, $20 for that. But I mean, for some of these mods are like entirely new, are basically expansion packs, for lack of a better word. If you are adding 20, 30 hours of extra content onto a game, you should get paid for it. I mean, so even though I disagree with Valve and Steam's motivation, because let's be frank, with Valve and Steam, it's about the money. Okay, it's about the pecunium, which in Latin means money. Okay, it's about that green. Okay, because here's what people won't tell you about Bethesda. Bethesda did not make nearly as much money on Elder Scrolls Online as they wanted to, because MMOs are incredibly expensive to maintain, incredibly expensive for upkeep, and the time and energy that they have, I mean, even though another part of Bethesda is actually working on that game, it's still like, that's still people that could be working on something else that are constantly having to work on that game. And that's just the nature of an MMO. Like, you go to Blizzard, there is an entire department devoted just to World of Warcraft. That's all they do, is just World of Warcraft. All they do is work on patches to make that game better. And those people have to get paid. So, I mean, you have an entire department that's devoted to just keeping a game running. And those people have to be there, because if they aren't, your MMO is going to crash. And that's just the people. The people are very important because they have your experience, you know. Then you have the servers you have to keep online. That's money. And for MMOs are server heavy. Always have been. Even back in the day when they were simple MMOs like EverQuest or EverQuest or I forget, stuff like that. I mean, it's all Ultima Online. It's always been very server heavy, which is kind of like that would be how they could crack the code for modern MMOs, is not to have them be so server heavy. They'd be a lot cheaper to make, a lot cheaper to maintain, but I don't think they're ever going to do that because the whole massively online thing. So the paid DLC, I think you should pay for it if it's worth it. If it's worth it, like this summer they're supposed to drop the Fallout New Vegas DLC, player generated expansion, or like total world conversion, called Lone Star, which takes place in Texas, and it takes place 20 years before New Vegas. That game, I mean, from what I've heard about it, is really, I mean, I'd pay $20, $30 for that. I would. But I wouldn't give it to Bethesda because fuck those guys. I'll give it to the modders who made it. So yeah, this Bethesda Skyrim, this Bethesda Valve little partnership they've formed is bullshit. But what are you gonna do? I mean, Bethesda's a shady ass company, and I say this because I have a friend who used to work at Bethesda, and I'm not gonna name names, but they do some shady ass shit over there. So next we'll move on to our last bit of stupidity in the gamosphere, Halo. Alright, it's time for our last segment, and this is kind of a funny note. The Halo Master Chief Collection tournament was called off because there's still online connectivity issues with this game. Now, this, to me, leads to three critical issues, okay? Things that this leads to me feeling that there's three emblematic things wrong with this whole thing, and they're this. First of all, this game has been out for 6 to 7 months at this point, and the online is still unstable. Now, here's the issue. There are people who are still playing Halo 3, Halo 2 on the Xbox 360, and the servers are fine, so what's the problem? That's the first issue. So this leads to the second symptom. The second emblem that lets me know that there's something wrong with this picture. If this game is basically just an upport of Halo games from the Xbox 360 up to the Xbox One, it was rushed, okay? Microsoft rushed this game. This game should not have been out in September or November when it came out last year. It really needed another 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 months, because they're still having connectivity issues. And at this point, it's either the coding or their servers aren't up to snuff. Which leads to my third problem with this. If the coding is wrong and they rushed, that means that 343 Studios is not the studio to be handling making a Halo game, because Halo is primarily built around the online multiplayer. Yeah, it has single player. Single player is okay, but it's really known for its online multiplayer. So if that's fucked up, what does that tell you about the rest of the game? Secondly, if it's their servers, then why the hell are they charging? I mean, if you are getting this shoddily a service, why are you paying $60 a year for this console's online services if you can't do the basic thing that the online services are supposedly there for, which is so that you can play your online multiplayer games with premium servers? Once again, Microsoft is full of shit. Either that or this is emblematic of a deeper issue. Tell me what you guys think. Leave your comments in the comment section about, anything I've said in this issue. I will leave the links in the description to all the stuff I talked about in the comment section, in the description, so you can click on them and read them for yourself. Good day, good night. I probably will have a live resurrection this Thursday, where I will be attempting to resurrect Dragon Quest. And that's the end of this video. Good night.